Hi everybody, Michael here from Guardians of the United Kingdom, and today I want to ask, is it time for the British people to consider citizens arresting our corrupt politicians and gaining justice for our people and especially our young girls? And this is on the back of the announcement there will be a grooming gang inquiry, and it seems to me that this is just absolutely insane. Like the whole thing, that tens, hundreds of thousands of young girls have been abused, and our political elite have covered it. And if you look into the cases of what happened to some of these young girls, they were trafficked to tens of men all over the country, and some of them were murdered, some of them were abused in some of the most sick ways, and it is stuff almost you would see from a horror film, and it's stuff that should not be happening in our country. And even if it does happen, they should be totally destroyed. But our corrupt elite have run cover for these savages, and it's absolutely disgusting. And I was thinking, you know what? There's this inquiry and people thinking it's good, but this doesn't go anywhere near enough. This is like a tiny part of what needs to be done. So much more needs to be done, and I've wrote it down. So we got the grooming gang inquiry, and that needs to be independent, not government run where they can run cover and hide a load of stuff and drag it out for years. That's not enough. It needs to be done independently. And I almost think that we need to citizens arrest all of these corrupt politicians. Tony Blair, the one who started it all off, Starmer, all these police chiefs, everybody who's had a hint of covering it up, they need to be citizens arrest and held in some kind of, or even the military could do it, held in some place where they wait until they have to give evidence to speak for their crimes that they have done to the British people. And there needs to be, again, an independent panel that's not related to the establishment. That's why I set up the Guardians of the United Kingdom. I actually want a circle of 5 wise spiritual people, and then I'm going to have the warriors as well. But those 5 wise people can come to a sort of independent inquiry. They can be the jury and take all the evidence and come to a conclusion as to what needs to be happening. And basically, a lot of bad things should be happening to them that I'll come on to later. But this is not enough to have an inquiry into just the grooming gangs. We need also an inquiry into Islam in the UK, you know, because a lot of this was religiously motivated by Islam and somewhat racially motivated. They called these young girls white slags and certain other things that they called them, you know. I think they call them kafirs, disbelieving girls. And it has a lot to do with Islam and racial. But mostly, we need an inquiry onto Islam in our country, and should it essentially be banned? Because if you understand Islam, like I do, I've studied religions for 15 years, it is a very, very dangerous religion that doesn't have any place in our country or in our world, to be frank and honest. And we need to, while we're talking about Islam, we need to look at Qatar, because Qatar are funding, and they're sort of like BlackRock. They have control over so many of our institutions with the massive investment firm that they have. And Qatar are corrupt. They sponsor the likes of the Muslim Brotherhood. I think they sponsor Hamas. They sponsor a lot of the radical Muslims in our universities, or they're infiltrating our universities. So when you see Oxford Union and there's a load of free Palestine whack jobs and all these craziness going on, a lot of it is sponsored by Qatar. And it seems like Islam is everywhere. This is because the money from Qatar is being sponsored because they want to spread Islam, because it's their religion. And number 4, obviously, we need an inquiry into immigration, or I would suggest a referendum. Just have one big referendum on what people want. Well, not even a referendum, to be fair. We just basically need to shut the borders. Everybody agrees that we don't want open borders. All these illegals need to go. We need remigration. And we need to put our people first, and we welcome the good immigrants and in sensible numbers. Even legal immigration is a problem if there's too many legal immigrants in the country. It just needs to be a small, balanced number of people who are coming here to benefit, as it was when I grew up. There were small amounts of good migrants, no problem. And English people, we are very tolerant, loving people. We don't hate anyone. So it's not a problem. We just don't want our towns filled with these weirdos abusing young girls, attacking men with knives and terrorist attacks. And it's out of control. And it can be sorted easily in a year. or two if you had sensible people in charge. And number 5 is going back to the point about all these politicians and police chiefs and journalists, everybody who has run cover, all the NGOs who've sort of subverted us, they all need to be given life sentences, because this is disgusting. What's happened? How you can allow abuse on such a scale to happen? We need to send a message to anybody who does this in the future that you're going to be punished to the full force of the law, as Starmer himself likes to say. So all guilty need life in prison, assets seized, and the funds that we seize can be given to the victims and also to many of the people who've had their lives turned upside down by speaking out, such as Tommy Robinson, such as Raja Mia, who is a good Muslim who spoke out in his community and his life has been in danger. He's been attacked by the establishment. So if they need to be reimbursed in some way, then they can be reimbursed through the assets that we seize. And obviously, if you remove the Tony Blair Foundation, I'm sure they're worth billions, and he was responsible for the Iraq-Afghanistan war, and we've got a load of refugees from Afghanistan. So what we can do, we can come to a sensible conclusion, seize Tony Blair's assets and use that money to pay the Afghanis, just say, look, you lot have got to go, is 20 grand each, and they'll be straight back to Afghanistan, happy as Larry with their money in the bag, and say, look, you got to go, you're not staying here if you're illegal. You can try and come in legally, but for now you got to go. And finally, I think we also need to consider, do we need to remove or turn away from the royal family? Because the king has totally betrayed. He's been lost. He's even defending Islam. And I think we almost need a rethinking of the system that we have in our country. In terms of, I think something like the Guardians of the United Kingdom could be placed instead of the royal family. So instead of having a monarchy of the king that's outdated and they've become useless, you could have a spiritual monarchy where the wisest people of society would run the country. So if you placed the Guardians of the United Kingdom above the politicians, so if I was there now, I'd be straight into Parliament, I'd absolve Parliament, and I'd set up a temporary government. I'd say, right, all of you lot are sacked. I say I want Ben Habib Prime Minister, Rupert Lowe Deputy Prime Minister, and then I'll get the likes of the good politicians who say that they were blocked. So the likes of Suella Braverman, Liz Truss, Dominic Cummings, all these people who said that they were blocked by the system, I'll give them monthly rolling contracts. And if they don't do what needs to be done, they'll be fired. And I'll get someone else in who can do the job. And our country could be sorted out so quickly, so easily. We just need to keep up the pressure on our corrupt establishment and do not back down or be intimidated. Because I started to see the tide is turning. Even loads on the left are saying on videos I'm watching, they're saying like, you can't ignore immigration. Like somebody in the video will be trying to say immigration is not a problem, and then all the comments was like, I'm a lefty, but immigration's out of control, my town's been ruined and all this stuff. So we need to keep up the pressure, and I do believe good things can come. And that's one of the reasons I set up Guardians of the United Kingdom, to give a separate movement, because if we can't necessarily rely on the politicians, we need to build something ourselves. That means that no matter what they do, we can always have a certain amount of power if we build up in numbers. And once we get our numbers up and influence up, then we'll be unstoppable, because we have the power of the Spirit of God behind us with the wise council and the warriors, who I will get in place as well, a council of warriors, and build our young men up ready for battle if we need to. Then we'll be happy as Larry, and we can have some positivity in our country. And it's not far away. It won't take much. You just look at El Salvador. Their good prime minister or leader, president, whatever they have there, he's turned the country around from one of the worst crime rate country to 3-4 years later, barely any crime compared to what they had before. And things are looking brilliant in the country. And we can have it in Britain. We've got the best people. We just need some good leadership. And we need to put pressure on our elite. And as I say, they need to face consequences. What they've done to this country and our people and our young girls, the most precious people, and Southport, savages murdering young girls, and they ran cover. It's disgusting, and they must pay in whatever way possible. Okay, so that's the point of my video today. If you like what I'm talking about here, subscribe to the channel, because this is the beginning of the movement, and we want to make change in our country. Like the video if you like it, share it with as many people fed up as possible, and come and join, and we can make a change. God bless everybody, and goodbye.